All right, Parshas Shlach, and we are continuing to build upon our themes, our fundamental themes that we always work with in this class. The objective of constantly going back to our themes is so that the foundation stones that basically hold up the entire structure, all right, become more identifiable to us, and not only in general but in nuance. There are yesodot, there are basic fundamentals that underpin all of Yiddishkeit. And without them, our relationship to Hashem is not understood well, and our commitment to Torah and mitzvahs is not strong. And we have established some of these basics, and it is essential that no matter what we talk about, we're always adding nuances, aspects, details to the foundations. And once you have a much broader foundation, that which is built upon it is stronger, and also that which is built upon it is known, is understood to be an outcome. You see the roots and the sources of everything. Okay? And we're going to have an opportunity today to look at that, because we're going to deal with the whole story of the Meraglim, and then the mitzvah of tzitzis, which comes after. But we're not going to focus on tzitzis itself. We've actually done that in the past, because obviously it's very relevant to us till we wear tzitzis. But we're going to focus on the mitzvah in tzitzis, which is very relevant, which is lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei nechem. Do not tour, do not scout out like Meraglim, which are called Turim. Okay, so let's remember the basics, okay? Basics. We have the four fathers, the three fathers of the Jewish people, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The mothers, we know, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. And they served very different purposes. We established, and this is very important for Shemona Esrei, because that's the first three brachos are about the avos, and everybody wants to know why not the imahos. And the reason is because what we're focusing on is the contribution of the avos. The imahos built the nation, but the avos expressed through their lives the fundamental forces in play that govern our life here. And unless we understand them, we don't know how to build a nation, and what type of nation to build, and what the nation should be about, and who is part of the nation and who isn't. So we said like this, again, we're going to reduce it, this was last week, some simple fundamental categories. There is Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They are not just people, they bring to this world ideas about the relationship of human beings, of course the Jewish people on a higher level, because we've volunteered to operate on a higher level, with Hashem. Okay? Avraham, you know this now by the back of your hand, the midah of Avraham is chesed. Not just the midah of Avraham, the whole world begins with chesed. Not just the world beginning with chesed, religion, Avraham beginning with chesed, which means our relation to Hashem. Mashiach, salvation, ultimate, the restoration of the truth begins with chesed. Chesed is the underpinning of everything. Every child starts in a state of chesed. If chesed is not something that we exist with, that's part of who we are and our psyche, we can't really go any further. We said that. You tell me now. What is chesed not? Doing something for another person. In other words, chesed does not require two people at all, ever. Olam chesed yibaneh does not mean Hashem conducts the world with chesed. It means a world is born out of chesed. There's no two people. There's Hashem, nothing else, and chesed, which brings a world into existence. Chesed doesn't require the other person. It's what gives life to the other person. So we explained very often, many shurim go back to this. Chesed is the first basic truth, and it's not something you learn, it's something you know, it's something you are, it's something in your psyche, it's in your gut, it just is. Chesed is the awareness that we belong, that we are part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's existence. HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows us to participate in his existence. In other words, Hashem makes, so to speak, not really, so to speak, a space for humans, the entire humanity, creation to exist, and yet our existence is entirely by the will of Hashem. Just like, the fetus in the womb. The mother doesn't do anything for the fetus. The mother eats, and by virtue of her existence, the fetus exists. But we said, and a child must feel that attachment. The word we use is attachment. I belong. And that's why when a child gets a message that that person they belong to, that they're part of, that is one, that their existence is not independent of at all, suddenly treats them like a stranger, hurts them, doesn't care about them, neglects them, that abandonment, that premature detachment is a devastating wound that many people don't get over for their whole lives. How could it be that what I'm part of doesn't see me as part of them? That they ignore me, they turn their back on me. That's terrible premature detachment. On the other hand, if the attachment never ends, then we don't exist. You're just part of Hashem. The fetus just stays part of the mother. It doesn't have a self. It doesn't have an otherness. Has nothing to do. Has nothing to offer. What are we here for? So the next step is, and as we're going to see now, this is a very difficult stage. Transition into separateness. The baby is born. Okay, now, the baby just doesn't become an adult in an instant. First, there's the infant stage, and this is what we're going to deal with in the Parsha today. Looking back at Baloscha, because it's a lead-in to Shlach, is the nursing phase. In the nursing phase, there's a creature that is entirely dependent on the mother, but still has an aspect of separateness to it. And then that separateness matures, and the child eventually says no, and then they become an adolescent, and then you give them away for 6 years, maybe get them back when they're 19, and then, but in those 6 years where they want to individuate and experience themselves as a separate entity. And it could get so complicated that they want nothing to do with their mother, father. They don't want to hear, they don't want the parents to know nothing, don't understand anything, it's all mistake, they know better, they have this individuation. But notice that, as we're going to see in these parshas, the individuation is not smooth. You want to be part of, but you also want to be separate. It's a back and forth tug of war. You want to express your individuality, but then you're scared to be alone. And your parents should still take care of you. Same thing with Am Yisrael and Hashem in our infant stage here in the desert. Okay? That's what we're going to see. There's attachment and detachment, and they're not progressing in order. They're colliding with each other. Why not? Why not? And the answer is, with children, with Am Yisrael, that we have to, it is healthy, it is important for the attachment to secure itself in our psyche, to slowly kind of give way to detachment. And if there's a rupture there, if it happens too quickly, it's dangerous. If there's too much attachment, we don't exist. There's rebellion. I'm not allowed to be, I'm not a prop in my parents' show. I'm not an extension of them. I'm allowed to be a separate person. If there's too much attachment, no good. Too much detachment, no good. One leads to anger, one leads to fear. Anger that I'm too attached, fear that I'm too disattached. Okay? This is the dynamic. You see it in people, you see it in Am Yisrael. And you see the tikkun. Here, how to avoid this, okay? So if you look back into what led to the Meraglim, because if you ask them, what is the Meraglim? They're scared to go into Eretz Yisrael. Where's their emunah? Where's their sense of attachment? Where's their sense of the chesed, that they're part of Hashem? Why is there so much fear that they're alone and they can't manage to face these giants, and the land is too demanding, and they'll never make it? Why do they feel so alone? Where did this premature sense of detachment come from? Why were they missing emunah? That Hashem would provide for them, as Hashem always did. And we also added a very important factor. We said, why does Hashem go through this with us? Why does Hashem first create us, both as infants and as Am Yisrael, as humanity, with going through a period of intense attachment, where we are, like, so to speak, living off miracles provided for by Hashem, the man, the whole thing. Then let us emerge. That was really the going into Eretz Yisrael as individuals. You know, when a person individuates, there's great benefits and great risks. The benefits are, and the way the healthy process is, I feel secure in my attachment and my belonging, and that I am loved and provided for and cared for and understood. But I also know that I'm a separate person with my own perspective and individuality, and I can bring new things to the table. So I take my parents' values and ideas and truths, and then I mix them in with my own personality, and new great things come from that. Same thing with Am Yisrael. We're part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but then Hashem lets us be separate. But for why? Why does Hashem allow us to experience ourselves as separate individuals with our own bechira? Let's be honest. We said this last week, right? We really never left the womb, right? Does Hashem need us for anything? Stop in Shemitah for a whole year, guess what? Everything keeps going. The sun keeps rising and the oceans keep flowing. And like Koheles says in chapter 3, there's a time for this and a time for that. Everything keeps going. What does Hashem need us for? Why did Hashem allow us to experience ourselves as individuals? What are we here to offer Hashem that He can't do for Himself? What role do we play? We come, we go. There's no way. Koheles says you can't change anything. Hashem runs the world. What are we here for? And we answer this with one word. Kavod. Excellent. The one thing that Hashem cannot provide for Himself and requires another person is kavod. Now, what does it mean that Hashem wants to provide it for Himself? Hakol bara lichvodo. This is a summation, by the way, of the last 4 or 5 classes, right? Hakol bara lichvodo. It means that when a human being operating with the experience of being a separate entity, clearly, completely, still enveloped by Hashem's will, obviously, but experiencing being an individual, recognizes, I really have nothing to offer here. There's nothing for me to do that Hashem can't do for Himself. What am I here for? And you realize that Hashem has hidden Himself in His own world, and it is only through us that Hashem will be discovered and appreciated and recognized in His own world. We are the source of kavod for Hashem, and then we realize that there is no situation, no matter how good or bad, how difficult or how pleasant, that a human being finds themselves in that cannot be a vehicle for kavod shamayim. And in this arena, the playing field is entirely equal. There is no difference. Everybody, the greatest Talmud Chacham and the biggest Am Haaretz, no matter what, everybody with a sense of what am I here, asking the question, what am I here for, has the equal opportunity to bring kavod to Hashem. In other words, to make Hashem known in His own world. And we are creatures designed for giving kavod. Viktor Frankl, everybody, man is driven by the need for purpose. What is purpose? I'm doing something of value. In other words, I'm devoting my energies, my intellectual, emotional, physical energies to something worthwhile, greater than myself. Okay? Something worth revering enough that I devote myself to it. We are creatures designed to give kavod. We just don't know who to give it to. So we start with giving it to ourselves. It must be that I'm here to give kavod to myself. Everybody understands. This is the first 2 prakim of Koheles. It's an empty, thankless task that leads to misery. It doesn't make anyone happy. Then you give kavod to others, baseball players, smart people, rich people, the Queen of England, or Ivanka, whoever, the Princess Diana, somebody, and hopefully a Talmud Chacham or a Tzaddikus or a Tzaddik, hopefully. You want to give kavod because you want to devote yourself to something greater and truer. But giving kavod to anything other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu or those that are connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is empty and pointless. So we are designed to give kavod. All right, and to give kavod, we need to be individuals, other people, because Hashem cannot give kavod to Himself, and nobody can give kavod to themselves. That is a strange phenomenon that Hashem created. If you pay someone to give you kavod, if you threaten someone to give you kavod, if you beg someone to give you kavod, kavod requires another free individual person with their own bechira. Correct? So far, so good? Yeah. Everyone gets this? Now, Avi will deal with it a little later. We must go into the parsha because it's already late. Now, what goes on here? This is the story. Remember, they were supposed to go straight into Eretz Yisrael. Remember the Sefer Torah that hasn't been written yet? Why don't we proceed directly? Can I have one of my notes, please, by the way? Why don't we proceed directly, thank you, into this perfect state of balance called Eretz Yisrael with the Aron, where we're both living in a state of emunah, which Eretz Yisrael definitely requires. Doesn't rain unless we deserve it, right? And yet at the same time, it requires hishtadlus, individuality, nation building, all the issues that nations have. Eretz Yisrael is the arena where we express the proper balance of our attachment and our detachment, our emunah and our hishtadlus, our connection, our chesed and our gevura, correct? What stops us from just nicely proceeding to that state? What gets in the way? Why is it so complicated? And the answer is laid out here, starting at the end of Bahaloscha after the two nuns. So turn back to Perek Yud Aleph, which is 786. Okay? This is the first thing. In that state where we have just been, we were in Mitzrayim, the Makos, Aseres HaDibros, Kriyas Yamsuf, and Har Sinai. This is all like the fetus in the womb. There's no self. Okay? Very little. Hashem is clearly running the show and providing to such a degree that at Har Sinai, when we really understood it, Parcha Nishmasam, our neshamas left us. We didn't have a separate existence. But now it's time to go to Eretz Yisrael, where we're going to have a separate existence. Okay? This transition is not easy. The first stage of separation comes, like we know, the birth was Yetzias Mitzrayim, but now's the nursing phase. Okay? You're going to see in a moment that the way the mon is described, it's not in my notes because it's a previous year, is just like breast milk. All the words relate to breast milk. Okay? It's the nursing phase. It's where you live off Hashem entirely. You're really not an individual. You don't farm and get your own food or do anything. And you're attached to Hashem, but you're beginning to experience a bit of separation. Hashem is letting us feel that, that individuality. The first thing that happens, look in Perek Yud Aleph, Vayihi ha'am kemis'onen imra ba'aznei Hashem, v'yishma Hashem v'yichar apo v'tevar bam eish Hashem. It's very sharp, it's harsh. They started to complain, okay? We called this year, by the way, how we become irrational, okay? If you look at it, the sequence of the second half of Parshas Baloscha is, how one thing leads to another. In Parshas Baloscha, after everything was set and all was in order to proceed directly to Eretz Yisrael, the entire car was toppled and a downward spiral began that disrupted all their hopes and plans. What leads us to allow our imaginations to invent a narrative for ourselves that holds us back? What's going to happen is we're going to see that we start giving into a certain fear, which leads to imagination, which is unhealthy, of all kinds of scenarios, which then holds us back. So it starts with individuation in general. When a child starts to separate, when we do, there is always the danger of fear kicking in. Okay? So what happens, Misonanim? Rashi says they were seeking a reason to complain. So they said, this journey is too difficult for us. We're traveling in a desert for days. This is impossible. It's exhausting. And Hashem says, but this is good. You're progressing quickly to Eretz Yisrael. Just keep going. Push yourself a little bit. And instead they can't, and they start complaining, and this is a terrible thing. And it says, Vayichar af. Vayichar af is a very important metaphor to understand. It says Hashem's nostrils flared. What does that mean?
You said it only happens with Avodah Zarah.
It only happens with Avodah Zarah, correct? And what does it mean? And it means that here, this, I didn't want to actually go this way, but maybe we should. You know what, let's leave it for a moment. There's too much else to do. But Vayichar af, Hashem doesn't have a nose, and he doesn't get angry, okay? Everything that we ascribe to Hashem is really trying to explain to us, okay, in our type of language, what's happening, okay? The neshama that exists within us is that which derives us both to attach to Hashem and both to want to express our individuality, giving kavod to Hashem. That's the neshama that drives us. It's not our emotions, it's that voice in us that says, you can do more. What are you here for? What's your purpose? You're not alone, you belong to Hashem. That's that voice, both. And when we begin to want to silence that voice, because what's happening is we're beginning to experience ourselves as separate, just like a little child does. And it's a thrill to be a separate entity. And there's all these possibilities. And you get to make all your own decisions and evaluate everything your own way and determine your own point of view. Okay? And now you start fighting back against your attachment, who's, that which is governing you, guiding you, providing for you, securing you. The first thing is you want to break away. You look for a reason to break away. Okay? What you're really doing, if we do that too prematurely, this is the advice here. If we have a tendency to do that too prematurely. What we're going to do is we're going to take that neshama which speaks to us, and we're going to end up ignoring it, or maybe even banishing it. It says vayipach ba'apo nishmas chaim. Hashem blew the neshama into our noses. That's the mashal. When we say vayichar af Hashem, okay, exhaling, what we're really saying is we. Okay, it's not about Hashem. We are in danger of expelling our neshama, or the messages of our neshama, which is, so to speak, something wrong in Hashem's eyes. No good. Okay? It's no good in Hashem's eyes, because what it means is we're going to slip into a place of imagination and fantasy, rationalization and excuses, all employed to support our own desire to really be separate and just be gods of our own and determine all our own truths. Like the separation thing can get out of hand if it's not handled correctly. Okay? So the first thing that happens is misononym. All right? Now what happens there? Okay? Ramban 11:1 explains the sin of misononym. Complaining, okay, is the first in the downward spiral. It's one of self-pity based on fear. How are we going to survive this journey? How are we going to do it? In other words, starting to think about what's better for me. I know what's best for me. Hashem doesn't know what's best for me. My parents don't know what's best for me. I know what's best for me, and this journey is just going to be too long. I'm not going to be able to handle it. How could this be happening to me? And we start becoming afraid based on the fact that we get a feeling that we know what's best for us. Okay? It's too premature. What happens next? Massive complaint against the man. And what we're going to focus on is Moshe's response. Critical. It'll lead straight to the Meraglim. They're actually copying Moshe's response when they say we can't go into Eretz Yisrael. What happens? They start complaining against the man. Okay? Now, look at the language here. This is nursing, okay? We don't want to nurse anymore. We want to be free. So look at the language in Pasuk Daled, okay? And now this is not the greatest among the people who start this complaint. This is the weakest spiritually, okay? These are the outliers, the subversive ones, the message you must not listen to when somebody tries to say it to you, okay? This is a subversive message that can make a lot of trouble. This is what we have to avoid. So the asafsuf, asher bekirbo, which means the riff-raff, so to speak. Look at the next two words. Hisavu tava. They wanted to have desire. When you're part of your mother and you're part of Hashem completely, and you're eating man, there's no self. You want to feel a self. It's just a little too early. Okay? All right? So what happened? They sat and they cried, self-pity again, about their predicament. We have no meat to eat. We want to eat meat because meat is life and passion, and blood, and all of that. Okay, we're not going to be vegetarians here. Forget living off the man. In this pristine existence of spirituality that you didn't even have to go to the bathroom and all that stuff. It was nursing basically. Okay, and so what happens? Zacharnu es hadaga. Remember the fish that we ate in Mitzrayim for free. Right? We just ate fish. Now look at all the things. And then he mentions that, which fruits? Cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlics. And you know what Rashi says? All the food that nursing mothers should not eat. Hello? All the food that nursing mothers don't eat. They're missing that. What about all that stuff before we had a nurse? Okay? Now our nafshenu yavesha, we're dried out. We have no passion. We're too connected. There's only ein kol bilti ha'man. All our eyes see is this man. In other words, our perspective is just determined by this man. We're extensions of God. We're living off God. It's time for us to assert our independence, which is good, but not too early. This is the danger. okay, of all humanity. Now the Torah defends the mun, but the mun was like coriander seed. Okay, this is all kind of, we've talked about this in the past. Ve'eno ke'en habadolach, like a crystal, and the Jewish people would gather it and grind it and do all the kinds of things they would want with it, and it would taste it. You know, we know it tasted like whatever you wanted, which means it tasted like whatever you wanted. It means it was an extension of your thoughts. It was very amorphous. It wasn't something real in and of itself. And look what happens. When Moshe hears, Pasuk 10, them crying, okay? And Hashem and Moshe think this is absolutely terrible. Again, this is dangerous. You're stopping to nurse too soon. You need to have that healthy attachment before you can be secure and know what to do with your individuality. Don't preempt it. That's why we have the chinuch phase in life. Chinuch is good. There's a time for chinuch. There's a time to orient everyone, time to give them the sense of who they belong to and what they belong to. We're very anxious. We're very impatient to be ourselves very soon. And it leads to a lot of mistakes, and it also leads to a lot of fears. Now look what happens. Now look, this is the mashal that we've been using forever. Vayomer Moshe Hashem, and we're going to analyze this. Lama hare osal avdecha, why have you done so bad to me? How come I have not found favor in your eyes to give me this burden? Now look what Moshe says. Did I conceive them? Did I carry them in my womb? Did I give birth to them? Am I supposed to nurse them? Okay? Right? All these mashalim, because you're telling me, yes, you're supposed to nurse them like a nursing mother carries her suckling child in her breast. Moshe says, "My ayin li basar, I have no meat. Where am I going to get meat to give to this nation?" Then he says these words, and this reverberates through Miriam's sin and the sin of the Meraglim. I can no longer bear the burden of this nation by myself. They're too much for me, and if you insist, just kill me. What is going on here? Moshe was able to come to the defense of a nation in every situation, and suddenly you're saying, I can't do it, take me out of this. What is going on here? Moshe's answering. He's saying, I exist in a state of total experience of attachment to Hashem. He could go up on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights in a state of extreme hibernation and just live off the life of Hashem in a state of nevuah for 40 days and 40 nights, and then come back into the world and do his thing with his own individuality and his own gifts and his own personality and convey the word of Hashem. And he's very happy eating the mun. In fact, we learn that the mun comes with chus Moshe. It's fine. That balance is perfect for Moshe. But he doesn't need meat. He doesn't experience this determination to be so separate from Hashem. He doesn't live like that. So he says, I understand what it means to conceive and to give birth and to nurse, but they want to break away from that now. They want to turn their back on that and get to a stage that I don't exist in. I don't want that separation from Hashem. I don't want to get lost in it. I am deeply connected. He says, I don't have the meat. I am not a leader that's operating on the same level as the people. So I can't do this job. We need others. And if you want me to do this job, you might as well kill me, because I don't have I'm not on the same level. And when he says, and when he says, I can't do this, okay, this is a very common response that parents have. I conceived this child, I carried this child, I nursed this child, I'm providing everything for the child, and now this child wants to turn their back on me and not listen to what I say, and they want meat, which means they want their individuality and they want to see things their way. It's the sin of the Eitz Hadas all over again. It's the sin of the Egel all over again. It's all the same sin. Okay, the term seeing individuality and separation as total freedom, and breaking away into that too soon. And the parent says, now what should the parent's response be? Then there's nothing left for me to do here, or nothing I can offer. They don't want to hear from me. That is not the response. The response is that individuation is a good thing, and it just has to be carefully shepherded, and it can't be something that scares us or that makes us feel that we can't do anything about it. It is a part of the process. But it's also true that we're being warned here that if we jump into it too soon, we will lose ourselves in the excess of it, which is exactly what happened when the slav came, when the birds came, and they consumed it with such excess they couldn't handle it. And we will also end up in a state of great fear, which has led to the meraglim. By not eating the mun, by rejecting the mun, they ended up in a state of detachment that led to their fear of going into Eretz Yisrael. Now Moshe says, I can't. So Hashem says, I'm going to make 70 more Nevi'im. Okay? And you're going to share your Nevuah with them, but they're going to be more on par with the people. And they're going to be able to relate to the people and their determination for their separateness, because they're going to also live like that. Okay? They're going to live in a state that's not like yours, Moshe. Moshe differed from all the other Nevi'im in fundamental ways. He did not have to fall into a trance, meditating himself into a trance to get Nevuah. He just spoke to Hashem regularly. He didn't have seizures and things like that, which took over the bodies of the Nevi'im because their physical bodies couldn't handle that spiritual experience, and they lost control of their bodies. Moshe was completely composed all the time. Moshe spoke to Hashem face to face, so to speak, not seeing Hashem, but in a state of composure, not in a dream. He saw images that were clear, not dream-like things like the other Nevi'im. And he was operating in a state of, total attachment. Like we say that Moshe had a spakalaria me'ira, completely clear vision. Remember the uterine walls transparent? For Moshe, they were transparent. And so he knew himself and his kochos, and he also knew what he was part of. But these other Nevi'im would be more like us. They would have moments of inspiration, which would be very traumatic and overwhelming, moments of clarity, but then they'd also operate like people, detached, disconnected, and they'd have to be very careful to, like Rambam says, to stay away from getting too identified and attached with the materialism of this world. They have to be careful, because that's the trap, that's the danger. You become so separate, you think that buildings and cars and status and careers and intelligence and money and beauty, these are what individuates you. This is what makes you separate. That's not why we're separate. And everybody starts pursuing these things as proofs of my individuality. But those are not proofs. The proof is how much I bring Kavod in my way. That's our individuality. So their Nevi'im are very afraid, because these attachments happen very easily. These false senses of what gives me and why I'm an individual, they're very easy to get caught up in. The individuals, so Rambam says Nevi'im have to be very careful, very, very careful, zahir from all kinds of things. What happens when Hashem gives Nevuah to everybody? Now you get to the essence of Lashon Hara. Miriam sees that Zipporah says, and we mentioned this about 5 weeks ago, so Zipporah says, "Oi, I feel bad for their wives, because now, my husband is separate from me, and they're going to have to separate from their wives," assuming that these Nevi'im are like Moshe. And Miriam repeats this, right, to Aaron, and she says that Moshe separates from Zipporah, and we're Nevi'im and we don't do that. Like, why? Why is he doing that? She questions he's too extreme, because she doesn't have any idea, which shows Moshe's humility, that he never conveyed it to anyone, that he's operating on a level that is entirely above and beyond what everyone else, even other Nevi'im, are operating on. Nobody knows that. So she has data, but it's her own imagination that gives a story to it. He's going too far. Okay, that's her interpretation. It's not the facts at all. And Hashem comes to Moshe's defense and says, no, he's not going too far. He exists in a totally different state that no one else, that nobody else exists in or can relate to. Okay? That nobody else can relate to. So now, what happens here? Why did Miriam Why did Miriam feel that she could even utter a word in judgment of Moshe?
She saved him.
Why? Just look at the story right before it, because now Moshe is not the only Navi. He's not the only Navi in town anymore. There's a lot of other Nevi'im, right? Suddenly Moshe's status in the eyes of the people has been downgraded a tiny bit. He's not the only Navi. Now he still is the only Navi who operated on that level, and that's why we accept Torah from Moshe and no one else. Okay? Nevi'im do not make up halacha ever, ever. And if a Navi says, I know this halacha because I'm a Navi, you ignore them completely. Halacha is determined by a majority vote of Talmidei Chachamim. That's it. But other than Moshe, Moshe gave us Torah because of his state of being, because of his aspaklaria me'ira. Now, Moshe's status was a little downgraded in the eyes of the people. That led to Miriam saying something in judgment of him. That led to the Meraglim, who it says clearly in the Pasuk, didn't take a lesson from Miriam, and they said, yeah, and why didn't you bring us into Eretz Yisrael? Yeah, why didn't you? Aren't you supposed to bring us into Eretz Yisrael? And obviously, I don't think you can, because this land is overwhelming, and so what happened here? Okay? What happened here is, this is what happened. They refused to eat the man. The man would have given them breast milk, so to speak, spiritual food, a deep sense of what Moshe had. The man was in the zchus of Moshe, which is Emunah. Omein is a nursing mother. Omein Esayir. Moshe says it. You want me to be the Omein, the nursing mother? They would have given them Emunah, like Moshe had, a little bit more of Moshe's Madrega. And that would have fortified them like it does for a child. It immunizes and fortifies the child. It's very healthy, important. Breast milk, right, for a good amount of time. It's best. Not everybody can handle it, but everybody knows it's very beneficial and important. Spiritual food, like the man, it changes every day according to the needs of the baby. That's a scientific fact. Just like the man fell per person per day, and it could be what it needed to be. They didn't eat the man. And therefore they were lacking in that ability to achieve, to stay on that state of emunah, and they were not fortified. And the first thing they did is they started to demand a certain sense of self. And then in the sense of self, you start comparing yourself to others, saying, they're not greater than me. Are they? Who says they're greater than me? Why do you have to start doing that, comparing? Because then when we individuate too soon, the first emotion that kicks in is fear, because you're alone. You're alone. When you separate and detach, you're alone. And then you start looking at everybody else around you as a potential threat to your status, to your identity. And they're not any better than me. That's where Lashon Hara comes in. Being alone and competing with other people and needing to compare and contrast and establish our own individuality. And that leads to even Miriam saying something. And that leads to the Meraglim. And the Meraglim come into Eretz Yisrael. And now, because they didn't eat the man, and they don't have that emunah, they face a land which demands confidence, individuality, hishtadlus, but also tremendous emunah, and they're too scared. They're too scared. So they resort to their imagination to invent a story to rationalize their fears. This is how we become irrational. We become irrational, and there's a whole section here which I in the end, which I think we can still do. We have 10 minutes. The way we become irrational, there's a simple 3-step process to becoming irrational as Jews. A, we do not give ourselves the time, the effort, the investment in the early years, in our formative years, and they don't have to be when we're babies. They have to be when our brain starts growing in, when we're adults, okay? Our brain starts growing in. And then we invest first and foremost, like Avraham, like Rus, like Hashem, like Am Yisrael, first in Emunah. and trust. And if parents don't treat their children in a way that conveys emunah in the parents, if there's abandonment on that level, it often leads the child to feel abandonment. They can't go on and have a secure sense of connection to Hashem. The person, the Mashiach, that managed to develop for himself a sense of total attachment to Hashem, despite the fact that he did not experience it as a person with his parents, was David HaMelech. Avi ve'imi azvuni, v'Hashem yasfeni. My parents abandoned me, but I found that connection with Hashem. So, but it's very important to establish it with children so that they can go on from there and experience that that's how it is with Hashem too. Okay? So that's step number one. There has to be time and patience to develop emunah. Then there's the healthy individualization and knowing what to do with our separateness and how we're sources of kavod. Okay? If we don't have time for emunah, if we teach Judaism or Yiddishkeit without focusing on emunah, just, this is, as if our relationship with Hashem was a big deal. You do this for God, so He'll give you this. You don't do that, He won't give you that. And that's the arrangement. That's the whole of Judaism basically approached like that. Do mitzvahs because then Hashem will give you, and if you don't, Hashem will punish you. If you keep Hashem happy, so you'll get what you need. There's no emunah, there's no sense of the chesed, of the connection, of the attachment, of the whole, there's all missing. And then when you ask people to be individuals, they get lost in their individuality, caught up, identifying deeply with all those finite, death-bound material things that they think is the reason for their individuality and the source of their individuality. Right? And then when they're all alone, pursuing all these things, they live in a state of fear. Fear that they're not someone, that they're alone, that there's no one to turn to. Fear, fear, fear. And then, out of fear, people do very irrational things. This is the process. So emunah comes first. Now, if you want to understand this a little more based on the text, okay? And then, I know I'm giving you tons of information, but it's so fundamental. This is exactly the sin of the Eitz Hadas. And you look on page 5 of your notes, okay? Everything we said here, read it tonight. There's more details here, all right? But look at the sin of the Eitz Hadas, okay? The Nachash is telling Ish and Isha, and we've talked about that. Ish and Isha is in our psyche. Telling them the truth. Saying, look, what is the Eitz Hadas? You tell me. What is the sin of the Eitz Hadas based on what we just said, based on what you know? Who can describe in this language, in this framework, the sin of the Eitz Hadas? Let me give you one hint. The Zohar says, of course they were supposed to eat from the Eitz Hadas, just not yet. Wait till Shabbos. What is going on? What is the Zohar saying? What is the Eitz Hadas? You tell me. What is Eitz Hadas, Tovara? Individuation, subjectivity. Eitz Hadas, Rambam says, Tovara is my point of view as opposed to emes and sheker, which is data, facts. When you live in a world of total emes, okay, you're essentially living without the ability to contribute much. Right? Because if everybody knows the same information, that's it. It is what it is. These are the facts. We all live in the facts. Where does individuality come from? Where does imagination come from? Okay? You have a lot of chemists who know the same information, but they do different things with their knowledge. They invent different things, different medicines, different. Where does an imagination come in? So we know, let's say in chemistry, first you have knowledge of emes and sheker, deeply ingrained in you. What's reality? And then, based on that integration of reality, of truth, then you can recruit your imagination, which is a device. It's a tool. It's a device that can help you do interesting things with the facts, different things than other people would do, because you have your own imagination. Imagination comes after facts, after intellect. Tovara, my point of view, comes after emes and sheker. It's not before or instead of facts. What is the Eitz Hadas? The Eitz Hadas is this desire to become subjective, to individualize, to live based on my imaginative capacities, how I see things, before we live and integrate a world of truth. That's all it is. It's letting your imagination, your beliefs, your hopes, your dreams, your individuality express itself freely, unfettered by reality, by emes. That's what we tend to do. That is the big challenge. So this is exactly what the Nachash is saying. The Nachash says, why aren't you supposed to eat from it yet? Ki yodeya Elokim, because Hashem knows, the day you eat from it, your eyes will open and you'll be like God, knowers of good and bad. That's a good thing. You'll be like Hashem. Everything you see, you'll immediately relate to it with your own point of view, whether it's good or bad, and you know what? You'll be right. You'll be completely right. If Hashem says something's good or bad, he's completely right, because Hashem has all the emes, is all the emes, and from that place of emes, this is right and this is wrong. This is good and this is bad. Imagine having that type of total clarity, so that anything you approach in life or anything you see, you can judge it whether it's good or bad in light of the truth. Your lens is the truth, and so therefore your interpretations of things as good or bad is also truth. That's very good. That's supposed to happen. But it's a process. It can't happen automatically. You first have to integrate truth. And then once it's who you are, then your imagination, your point of view, your reactions are all going to be correct. And you can operate freely based on your individual a response to things. By the way, this is ideally what is meant when they say someone has das Torah. The problem is that, let's be honest, that there is no one alive today with that type of clarity of nevuah, that every single solitary automatic reaction or response that they have to any situation is pure emes, because they are all emes and all das and all clarity, and therefore anything that comes from them by definition is emes. Halavai that should be. But it's not, and that's why even tzaddikim and talmidei chachamim and sincere people, when asked to give an answer, they check themselves. Is this true? Is this honest? Is there a bias here for me? Am I working with all the information? Am I getting all the information I need to make this decision? I mean, people don't just trust themselves that whatever reaction they have is right. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. That's not regular people. So there are many times great Torah scholars who immersed in Torah and in midos and character trait are whole, and they live what they teach. Yes, they could give good suggestions and give good insights, but they give help guidance. But even they would never say, "Trust me implicitly because I can never make a mistake." No. Okay. So, what we're seeing here is the Nachash telling them the truth. Now I just want you to look at one fundamental thing. The Nachash puts it in 3 phases. Your eyes will be open, you will be like Hashem, and you will know good and bad. Okay? Now look what happens. Look in Pasuk 6. She sees it. She sees that it's good to eat. It's desirable for her eyes. It's pleasant to contemplate. She eats it and she gives it to her husband. Okay, to the Ish. Now, in this week's Parsha, turn to the Parsha of Tzitzis, which follows the Meraglim. Okay? Look what it says. We are on page 816. Now look very carefully. Perek Tes Vav, Pasuk Lamed Tes, 1539, page 816. Look what Rashi says. Put the tzitzis on, and you'll remember all the mitzvahs, and you'll do them. Now look at the next words. V'lo taturu, that's the word for the Meraglim. Lo taturu achrei levavchem v'achrei einechem. Now watch this. Achrei levavchem v'achrei einechem. In biblical Hebrew. Levavchem, your heart, okay, means your mind. They didn't have a word for mind. Okay? Your heart, your passions, is your eyes. Okay, so lo sasur achar levavcha means your heart. After your mind and after your heart. Look what Rashi says. Okay? What happens when you eat from the Eitz Hadas too soon, or you eat meat too soon, or you reject the man? Okay? What happens? The Nachash said, this is what's going to happen. Okay? You are going to, this is the order. Your eyes will open, which means suddenly you'll see. You'll be like God. Rashi says, creators of worlds. You'll have your own point of view to everything created will be your own. And you'll know good and bad. Okay, look what happens here. Look at the exchange that takes place. Okay? Rashi, I'm sorry, I have to go back. Hold on, I'm missing a big piece here, sorry. Flip back to Bereshit. Okay, flip back to Bereshit 3:6. Okay, look what happens when she eats. Look what happens when she eats. Okay? Okay, I'm sorry, I missed this point. Sorry, okay, let's go carefully here. All right, look at Rashi. The woman saw in 6, Vatera ha'isha kitov ha'etz lamachol. Okay, kitov ha'etz, it was good to eat. Look what Rashi's telling us here. Doesn't write in essay form, but he's giving us very clear message. Okay. Okay, kitov ha'etz. Look what it says. Lihiyos ke'elokim. Number 1. Nachash said that's number 2. Nachash said your eyes will open and you'll be like God. She eats from it and suddenly she's like God. V'teira ha'isha kitov ha'etz lamachol. It's good. Rashi says lios kelokim. That's the first that flips. Kitava hu leinayim, and it's desirable for the eyes. Rashi says v'nipkachu einechem, your eyes will open. What just happened? They flipped what the Nachash said. The Nachash is telling the truth. Nachash is going to say your eyes will open. You will start seeing things from your own perspective. Okay? You're going to be subjective. You're going to be individualized. You're going to see things only from your own point of view. And then you're going to believe you're God and that all your points of view are true. And then, based on that, you are going to judge everything as good and bad. You're going to trust your own interpretation, that it's right. And you're going to say what's good and bad. So he's telling you, this is what's going to happen. If you eat from this Eitz Hadas, you are going to jump to a point of separation, individuality, and you're going to trust yourself that what you're seeing is not imagination, but truth. So she eats from it, and look what happens to her. First, she's like Hashem. That's what Rashi says. Then her eyes open. And then she knows good and bad. What is going on? It happens. Suddenly, we allow ourselves to go to that place of separation too soon. We are confident that we are like God, that we see everything correctly. Okay? That happens first. Then our eyes open, we say, oh, we're seeing it this way because it's the truth. We're like God, we know the truth. That's why we see it this way. And that's why we can judge things as good and bad. Okay? It's exactly what the Nachash warned. Happens. Rashi's telling you that. We totally trust that the way we see things is absolutely the truth. We are so separate, we forget that there's a much bigger picture. Then, after we're sure we're God, then our eyes open. We say, oh no, we see it this way because it's the truth. We're not inventing a truth. We're claiming that we have the facts. And now we're letting our imagination, we're seeing things based on fact, and we're judging things based on fact. What we've actually done is we've allowed our imagination to come before our knowledge, our seichel. But we've told ourselves that our seichel is coming before our imagination. This is the switch. So after the meraglim, this is the meraglim. They didn't eat the man. So they didn't have the perspective of Hashem. So they were separated too soon. So they trusted their own, out of fear, they made up stories, which then they trusted to be true. Okay? And then they scared everybody else with this false narrative that came from lack of emunah, too early detachment, and then everything spiraled downwards. Now, Rashi says the Mrs. Lo Sasur Achrei Levavchem V'Achrei Einechem. What's Rashi? Now we go back. What is Rashi saying? Right? Rashi is saying, first you're going to Lo Sasur, you're going to be like those spies. You're going to go Achrei Levavchem, which is your intellect, and Achrei Einechem, your desire. Okay, don't do that. Don't say in post-sin state that your intellect, which you justify yourself with, is the reason for your desires. It's not true. Your desires are the reason for your thinking. Because your desires come first. Your imagination comes first. Does this make sense? This is the danger. Always ask ourselves whenever we're faced with any dilemma, okay? First of all, am I seeing the whole picture? Who else can explain this to me further? What am I missing here? What is the Torah's point of view here? What would be the ramifications of this decision? Who's smart, who sees of you, right? What are the points of view are here? I don't want to trust my own perspective on this. I want knowledge. Once I have knowledge and I know what we're dealing with, then I'll let my imagination come up with creative solutions to this problem. But let me not first jump to my imagination. So I just want to say the halacha here, done is kol adam lekafschos, means like this. We have data. That's all we have. We make up a narrative. Okay? If a person lives in a world where for them, everyone is trying, or like they themselves live in a world where you're trying to do the right thing, and you're trying to have emunah, and you're trying to solve your problems, then they see other people the same way. But if they live in a world of fear, we live in a world of fear, suspicion, feeling threatened by everybody around us, disconnection from Hashem, that's going to be our story about everybody else and why they do the things they do. We're going to have a very low view of everybody. So it all comes from our lens that we're seeing through things with. And the idea is we have data, like the Meraglim had data, but the narrative was not true. Before everybody runs, I just want to say there is Henny Storch, where's Henny? Here. Has a friend who is could use